C'est le preview du pavillon hollandais.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a special evening for you as well, I think,
Yes.
because you have been working on it for months and then you can finally talk about it.
Working on it for years now.
Yeah. Maybe to start very simple, maybe a lot of people know it in the audience, but how this year's entry or the choice for the artist, how do you make that decision? How is this decision being made? Because each year it's a bit different. There's always a bit of fuss about it. How about this year?
Yeah, there's always endless fuss about it,
Yeah.
and it's always, well, it's not always different, but it has been different the last few years. And funny enough, there hasn't been that much fuss about it this time, even though hardly anyone knows how it went. So this is, I can tell you.
This is the opportunity to tell it.
Basically, after the last Biennale, I did a bit of a tour, and I spoke to people in the art world in the Netherlands, and I asked them how they experienced the last Biennale, or the Dutch representation of the Dutch Biennale, how they felt about a different location outside of the Giardini, how they felt about a choice for Melanie Benayo, how they felt it all had worked out, the different kind of strategy that we had taken. And I asked them at the end of each conversation, I said, well, what would you hope to see next time? And from all those suggestions that came out, that became a sort of a short list for the selection for this episode of the Biennale. And it was quite funny because one of the people I spoke to, museum directors and critics, but also people that have been nominated in the past. And one of them said, the funny thing is that the group in the end we talk about is not so big. Everybody sort of names the same kind of names. And that in a sense was a bit true. There was it was diverse. The group that I spoke to was diverse, and as a result, the suggestions they come up with was diverse as well. But it was also, in the end, not such a large group of suggestions that they would want to see in Venice.
But I assume that they didn't call the name of Cedar, who is in Kinshasa, Congo at the moment.
Not Cedar, but they did say CATPC and they did say Renzo Martens.
Okay.
They say Renzo Martens with this CATPC.
Yeah.
That's how they would discuss it. And so we made a selection of the ones that sort of stood out for certain reasons, and also which were slightly different than previous episodes. And we invited them to come up with a plan.
And why was it this the right year to do it? Because you have, of course, always artists who are named maybe many times, or maybe Renzo is already working since ages, maybe. Yeah. Why this time you said, yeah, this is the right time to present him and CATPC?
Well, I thought I spoke to someone who used to work at the Mondrian Fund, who used to organize the Biennale, and Renzo has been nominated before. And he had a nice analysis. He said, it is as if time and Renzo have met. it is sort of, it makes sense now. It was problematic 6 years ago to all sorts of levels, but he has matured and he has developed, and at the same time, time has caught up with that as well. We looked differently at it 6 years ago, so somehow it feels as if this is the right time.
Yeah,
and I think that's also what because we asked an advisory committee to look at all the plans, to question everybody who involved. And that's, in a sense, that's also different than before. It was not like we had a jury that said, well, this is the winner, go for it. We had an advisory committee that said, well, we look at the plans, we think that this is feasible, this is something that could work, but this is something that still needs to be worked on. And as Hicham and Renzo know, first thing I did is I went to them and said, we've got some work still to do. The plan you've proposed is, there's still a lot of questions about that, so we still have a lot of steps to take.
So they had a bit of homework. Yeah.
They had homework, but it's nice because it's different than like, yeah, you're there and go for it, and this is a prize. No, this is a production leading to a really good presentation in Venice.
And maybe to put it simple, we have now a Congolese artist collective.
Yes.
That is representing the Netherlands, supported by a curator and by an artist, Renzo and Hicham.
Yeah, I think Renzo and Hicham are really happy that you say it like that.
Yeah. But it's also important because, of course, that's atypical in the structure of the Venice Biennale with all the national pavilions. So what does it mean to have this construction at the Venice Biennale?
Yeah, the formal construction is that Renzo and Hicham are representing the Netherlands and what they do as an artistic gesture is they invited CATPC. So formally, that is sort of the setup.
But it's also, in a sense, a kind of critique about like how the Venice Biennale is structured. Or won't you say that?
No, I'm not sure it's a critique about how the Venice Biennale is structured, but how the art world, the global art world is structured. In which they basically said, this is a time in which we have to give space to those who, in the end, are at the basis of what we do here. So by giving the platform to CATPC, they say this is how we pay tribute to the real value they add to the art world, because as if you hear, well, you'll talk about it with Hicham and Renzo later, they will explain to you that as far as they're concerned, none of this here would be without CATPC and others in Africa and elsewhere.
And Congo, do they have a pavilion of their own?
They tried to have a pavilion, and I don't think they succeeded this time, but they had a sort of pre-organization, and I spoke to some people that they were nominated to present, but they were even not sure if that actually was happening. So my guess is it's not happening. It is complex to be part of the Venice Biennale. There's a lot of organization and steps to take.
Yeah, but this, like the construction that they have and also the works that they will present is also, okay, maybe not a critique, but in relationship to how this art world and also maybe the Biennale in small is structured. So is it in a way also a sign that the Biennale should be reinvented, like formally, how people are represented or how artists can have access to this platform?
Yeah, I think that's what we constantly do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really classic concept. National pavilions all coming together as like a sort of a world exhibition thing. And it's really old-fashioned and it's problematic, and it's also very attractive. It's very attractive to say, this is the presentation from France, and there is Luxembourg, and this
and
is
why
how
is
we
that
feel.
so attractive?
I don't know. It's like you can compare things. You can try to sort of see if you can see some kind of identity in it, and in the end, you also see what's going on in the art world at the same time. Even though it's a very old-fashioned concept, the Venice Biennale is still a very important moment in the calendar of the arts, because you see there what's going on right now as well.
Yeah, and maybe because you just said like it's always under construction, we think about like how do people look at the previous editions. If you think a bit about the future and the entry this year, what do you think that will be the impact of this construction for the next years of the Dutch entry? Can you say already a bit about that, maybe?
No, I don't have. I have no idea. I thought what was very nice about when we left the Giardini, that certain people thought that was a really risky thing to do. In the end, it was a really good experience. It gave us a lot of freedom, and I think in a way that gave us also the freedom to say, let's talk to an artist who will put a Congolese group of artists on the stage of the Dutch pavilion. So that it's somehow...
And now it's inside the pavilion again, right? You're back. Yeah.
Yes, we're back in the Rietveld pavilion, but it is a different affair than it was before the last time.
Yeah, and it's a difficult construction. There will be a lot of presentations. We can't talk about everything tonight, but we will do our best to touch upon certain things. What are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to?
Oh, that's a lot.
You can name one thing, because we don't have the whole...
I'm running out of time, I understand.
No, but we also have somebody on the Zoom, and he's a bit of short power supply. So
yes, his battery is running at 16%, I understand.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll keep it short. Cedar, please, 1 moment. Now, the nice thing about this project, we've just come back from Congo, and there you really experience what everything we do in Venice and everything that Renzo has done in Congo, that all comes together, how complicated and how layered it is. So it's very difficult to say that one thing is great about it. What's great about it is that it is a project in many layers, and each layer helps you to understand more and get into it more, and it's endlessly more fascinating after that. Yeah,
and maybe we speak about it in more detail, but there will be two exhibitions, one in Lusanga and Congo and one in Venice. Do you invite actually audiences to go to both of them, or only to Venice, or?
I would really suggest people to go to Lusanga, but it's not the easiest place to go to.
Yeah, okay.
But if you can, I would say why not?
Okay, that's a nice round-up for this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We continue. So I invite Hicham Khalidi and Renzo Martens already to sit with me at the table. Give them a warm welcome. Renzo, of course, already connected to the plantation, to Congo, to Lusanga since many years. We know you of Enjoy Poverty, the project from the White Cube, and now this next step.
Yeah.
And Hicham, you're curator, but you're also the director of the Jan van Eyck Academy in Maastricht. But we first go, because of the power short supply and about the internet connection, we will try to get a connection with Kinshasa, Congo. And Renzo will be working as translator, because we will speak in French and he will translate it from English. Cedar, are you there?
Je suis là, bonjour.
Yeah, we can see you on the big screen maybe. I will ask if that's possible. Yeah. Yes, he is there. Very, very warm welcome to you. Great that you can join us. Yeah, and maybe we can give a warm round of applause for you. I already introduced you a bit, but it's good to say again that you're an artist. You're now in Kinshasa, as I understood rightly, and you will represent CATPC tonight. But it's maybe good to say to Laurens that it's now good to not translate, because Renzo will do it, and then okay.
I'll do it both ways?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are there,
sure.
I think. Maybe Cedar, to start off, I think it's important for you, for CATPC, to be representing you as an art collective on the Venice Biennale. What does it mean to you, or what does it mean to CATPC?
Donc elle vous a introduit et elle se demande maintenant qu'est-ce que ça veut dire pour vous, pour le CATPC, et aussi pour vous en tant qu'artiste, de représenter vos œuvres à la Biennale de Venise. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire pour vous?
Oui. Pour nous, déjà, merci pour la parole et bonsoir à tous. C'est un plaisir, un réel plaisir d'être parmi vous, parmi nous tous. Pour nous, c'est CATPC, être à la Biennale de Venise, c'est un canal comme d'autres canaux que nous utilisons pour partager le sacré, notre relation à la terre, la relation entre notre art et la terre, qui est au fait un cycle qui revient. Et nous allons partager avec le reste du monde volontiers, et surtout avec les gens qui sont dans des situations similaires aux nôtres. Nous sommes un collectif d'artistes qui vit sur une ruine de plantation et qui a pris son destin en main pour changer son futur. Et ça se passe par l'art, et l'art revient à la terre revient à l'art, et nous, nos vies incluses dedans. Et ce canal néerlandais qui nous a été donné, nous allons l'utiliser pour passer un message, celui de partager le sacré. Le sacré, c'est la vie. Et c'est ce que nous avons à partager.
So thank you, first of all. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for giving me the word. Indeed, I represent here CATPC. For us, participating in the Venice Biennale, it's like a canal. It's like a way to move, like we have other canals. And what we want to do in Venice is to share the sacred. We want to share our relationship with the earth. We want to share the way we see that art and earth are connected, how they are both part of the same cycle, how art turns into earth, how earth turns into art. We want to share that with the rest of the world, but we also want to share this, very importantly, with other communities around the world who have similar relationships between art and earth. We are indeed a collective, and what we have done is take into our own hands, in our own hands, our destiny to create another future in which indeed art and the earth can reconnect. They have been separated, we reconnect them. So the Dutch pavilion, this Dutch canal that we have been offered, we take it with a lot of pleasure. And again, what we want to do with this canal that has been offered to us is to share with the world our idea of what is sacred. And sacred is life itself.
Thank you so much for that beautiful answer.
Merci pour la réponse.
Yeah, maybe can you elaborate a bit more about what you mean between art and earth and this connection? Because I think for a lot of people it's maybe new. Not everybody looks at art in this way. So could you say a bit about how you, as a collective, see that?
Est-ce que vous pouvez nous raconter un peu plus sur cette connexion dont vous parlez entre l'art et la terre? Pour beaucoup de gens ici, ils ne le comprennent pas peut-être. Comment vous le voyez? Quelle est cette relation que vous créez entre l'art et la terre?
Oui, déjà pour commencer, les sculptures qui nous ont fait connaître dans le monde, ce sont des sculptures qui ont été faites initialement en argile. L'argile de nos terres, l'argile de notre rivière, Wingé, à Lusanga même. Et cette même terre qui est partie, disons, l'argile qui a été transformée en produit de plantation lui-même, tiré de la terre, a généré des revenus qui ont racheté la terre où nous vivons, où nous faisons notre agroforesterie et où nous envisageons le futur pour nous, pour les générations à venir, et où nous voulons partager aussi tous les outils que nous avons acquis, que nous avons appris à manier avec les autres qui sont dans des situations similaires comme les nôtres. Donc, la relation entre l'art et la terre, c'est un cycle que nous vivons. Nos vies sont elles-mêmes témoins de ces cycles parce que c'est nous qui faisons nos sculptures. Nous les transformons en des produits de plantation que nous produisons aussi dans la plantation. Et à travers cet art qui est la porte d'entrée, comme dit mon collègue Mathieu Kassiama, nous arrivons à retrouver la terre. Et avec cette terre qui est où est couchés nos ancêtres, nous arrivons à tirer la terre et l'inspiration pour pouvoir refaire le même cycle et ainsi de suite. Et nous vivons en harmonie avec cette terre parce que dans la forêt que nous sommes en train de créer, la forêt sacrée, il y a la nature, la forêt d'avant qui a été détruite par la monoculture qui va revenir, où il y a presque un supermarché naturel, il y a des médicaments gratuits que les gens peuvent cueillir, des feuilles, des racines, des écorces d'arbres. Il y a les animaux qui vont revenir. Il y a une vraie connexion entre la terre et nous les humains. Et c'est ça que nous voulons partager aussi avec le reste de l'humanité.
So Cedar says the relationship between art and earth that you ask about, this is a cycle that we live. It's not something we invent, we live this. So to start with, the sculptures that have, made us known around the world, they have been made with earth, with clay that we find on the plantation. And so that's how we sculpt them. We make those sculptures in clay. Now later on, these sculptures are reproduced in products from the plantation. I add this for clarity, cocoa, palm oil, sugar. Now, with the benefits, the economic benefits that we get from producing those sculptures, what we do is we buy back the ancestral land. We buy back the land that was taken away from us. So quite literally, for clarity, with the sculptures made from earth, they buy back the land that they make the sculptures from. Then on this land, we start a process of agroforestry. We rebuild the forest basically. And we do this for future generations, and we also share these tools that we create. That could be sculptures, that could be the land, that could be the forest itself. We share those tools with other communities. So this relation between art and earth is this cycle that we live. And as my dear colleague Mathieu Kassiama says, art for us is the port of entry. It's the way in. It's the port of entry to get back our land, the land where our ancestors have been buried, the land that is our inspiration, the land that teaches us harmony, the land where we try to regrow this forest that was destroyed to make monoculture plantations. For clarity, I add that was Unilever that had the entire region, all the forests cut down to make palm oil plantations. They're buying back that land and they're reforesting it. Because this forest that was destroyed is a natural supermarket. It has leaves, it has roots, it has animals, it has medicinal plants, it has everything that we could possibly need. Now, this connection, we are rebuilding it and we are sharing it with the world.
Thank you so much. Maybe you said in the first answer, you said, for us, the Biennale is a direction to a certain future.
Yeah.
And now you are speaking about restoring certain things that are not good and that you try to restore. To what future are you working? What is the pathway?
The goal.
Yeah, the goal, actually.
Donc vous parlez de cette, le pavillon, la Biennale de Venise, le canal néerlandais dont vous parlez. Vous parlez de la restauration de la terre, vous parlez d'en fait reconstruire un futur. Quel est le but pour vous, pour CATPC? Quel est le but que vous envisagez?
Nous devons peut-être tenir compte de l'apport des travailleurs des plantations à l'existence du musée dans le monde. C'est par là que tout commence. La présence des CATPC ou des gens, des artistes qui viennent des plantations, n'est qu'une réparation de l'injustice du passé qui a laissé sans trace dans l'oubli l'apport non impossible à nier des gens des plantations que nous sommes et que nous représentons dans le monde. Et cette fois-ci, au moins un groupe d'artistes peut passer dans un de ces pavillons que nous avons contribué ou cofinancé involontairement à travers les travaux forcés imposés dans les plantations. Aujourd'hui, ce canal qui nous est donné, c'est une opportunité d'abord pour nous retrouver entre nous tous, des gens qui sont dans une situation similaire dans les plantations. Partager les outils, partager toute l'expérience et la connaissance que nous pouvons, qui peut nous aider dans des situations telles que nous sommes. Et aussi, par la même occasion, réunir l'humanité, ramener la solidarité, partager les privilèges malsains, les privilèges que certains ont et d'autres n'ont pas. Déjà, ce privilège d'avoir à exposer dans un pavillon à Venise, les gens des plantations ne l'ont pas. C'est un privilège malsain. C'est un privilège qui n'est pas donné à tous et on doit le partager avec des autres gens dans les plantations au Congo, au Gabon, au Ghana, en Indonésie, partout. Ramener l'humanité, montrer que la vie est sacrée. La vie des gens dans la plantation est sacrée. Ils ont aussi les droits, on a aussi les droits de participer à la grande fête d'art parce qu'on a contribué aussi à son existence.
Donc le but, the goal. CATPC, we are plantation workers. We work on plantations. We are and represent communities that work on plantations. And it must be said that we have a straight connection with museums all over the world that have been financed with labor extracted from plantations. So for us to exhibit, in this case in the Dutch Pavilion in Venice, is simply a reparation of a certain type of injustice. The injustice being that people who work on plantations have remained invisible. They have been denied. Their role in the construction of museums has been denied. And yet, it is impossible to deny this role because these museums have been built with the money extracted from plantations. So now, CATPC, through this canal, there's at least one little group, CATPC. There are millions maybe around the world, but there's at least one little group that has contributed to the existence, to the very existence of museums through forced labor that can now represent itself, its ambitions, its ideas in one such a museum. Now, our goal is to share this knowledge, this experience and the tools with other groups around the world, share this knowledge and this experience with other groups so that we can reunite and build new solidarities. Our goal is not to be CATPC, this wonderful group, we got the pavilion, we're great or better than others. On the contrary, our goal is to share these unhealthy privileges. The privilege to exhibit in a pavilion is not a privilege that any group of plantation workers anywhere around the world has. We have it now. But it will only help us, it will only not be a poisonous privilege if we share it with yet other groups, not just in Congo, but also in Ghana, in Indonesia, and in other places around the world. The right to participate in this great feast of art, this international celebration of art, that right, we should have it, and we want to share it. That's the goal for the future. To not keep these privileges to ourselves, but to share them even wider.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for this, sharing this knowledge, sharing these ideas.
Merci pour nous partager cette connaissance et ces idées, dit la dame.
Yeah. We already said it a couple of times that there will be two presentations mirroring each other. Why you, of course, decided together to organize this, to create this double mirroring. Why is that important in relation to this story that you just shared?
On a déjà bien mentionné le fait qu'il y aura deux expositions en même temps, donc celle à Venise et celle à Lusanga, et que les deux expositions seront comme un miroir. Pourquoi c'est important? Quelle est l'importance du fait qu'il y ait deux expositions en même temps?
C'est très important parce que des communautés comme nous, on s'est toujours senti exclus. On n'a pas droit à l'art. On a juste droit à travailler, à se taire, mourir petit à petit en silence, pendant que personne ne regarde. Alors nous n'avons pas de pavillon à Venise, mais nous sommes artistes, nous voulons faire partie de la grande fête, la fête internationale des blasphèmes du sacré. Nous voulons faire partie d'elle aussi. Nous voulons venir aussi avec nos idées. Mais comment s'imposer?
The connection is the connection seems to be frozen for a second. I will already start with the beginning of this answer. So the question was, why is it important that these two pavilions mirror each other? je reprends déjà la première partie de ton explication, si tu me permets. Oui. Ja, ik zeg soms vous, maar soms zeg ik tu. We zeggen natuurlijk altijd jij, hè, maar omdat dit een beetje formeel is, zeg ik ook een beetje vous. Goed. Ok, donc je commence avec... je dis qu'on se tutoie normalement, mais maintenant, comme c'est un peu formel, je dis vous. Si vous êtes d'accord, Cédar. So Cédar says it's very important that these two exhibitions mirror each other. Communities like ours are always excluded, as if we have no right to art. We only have the right to work on plantations and slowly die in silence when nobody watches. That's the right that we have. Now, all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a different position. And yes, we are artists. And from this different position, the position that they're normally in, but also this new position that they can participate, we want to... How can we impose ourselves? How can we be part of this international celebration of the blasphemy of the sacred, is how Cédar says it's called. How can we rightfully contribute to that? Donc j'ai traduit la première partie de votre réponse. Donc vous êtes venu au moment que vous demandez comment nous imposer à cette célébration internationale du blasphème du sacré.
Notre pavillon à distance dans la plantation s'invite à cette fête à pied d'égalité avec le pavillon Rietveld à Venise. On voit Rietveld, on voit notre musée à Lusanga, White Cube. Ça fait un équilibre. Ça fait qu'on se sent aussi participant et citoyen du monde. Parce que les artistes à Lusanga, ou toute la communauté à Lusanga ne peut pas voyager à Venise. Au moins, on coupe une partie de la fête et on la vit chez nous. Et là-bas aussi, il y a la fête. Ici aussi, chez nous, à Lusanga, il y a la fête. C'est bien. C'est comme c'est bien.
So our pavilion at a distance in Lusanga will create some equality. The fact that we have our own pavilion, the White Cube in Lusanga, creates some level playing field, some equality between those two worlds. We are participants now. Some of us, we are citizens of the world. Of course we were. We are now accepted as citizens of the world. And yet, not everybody will be able to travel to Venice. So therefore, it's quite normal that a good portion of the feast should happen in Lusanga.
Thank you. Maybe because the connection is not always right, so maybe a last question before we also let be joined by Hicham and Renzo. What in 3 weeks there will be an opening? Of course, it's always an opening, festivities and stuff like that. What will be seen in Lusanga at that moment? Will there be an opening or don't you see it like that?
Donc, dans 3 semaines, il y aura le vernissage à Venise et elle se demande est-ce qu'il y aura aussi un même type de vernissage à Lusanga ou bien qu'est-ce que les gens peuvent voir à Lusanga? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a à Lusanga? Quelle est l'exposition à Lusanga?
Déjà, c'est une surprise, mais je vais ouvrir un peu la marmite, comme ça on peut sentir un peu la bonne odeur que maman est en train de préparer à la cuisine, comme dit Mathieu Patiama, mon ami. Il y a déjà la sculpture de Balo, qui est sur place à Lusanga, une sculpture qu'on a longtemps attendue, Fungi. La communauté l'attendait sous le nom de Fungi, mais à l'international, on la connaît sous le nom de Balo. Donc, on va dire Balo, comme ça, tout le monde va la reconnaître. On va reconnaître que c'est d'elle qu'on parle. C'est une lutte de long time depuis 2020. On a essayé de faire voyager cette sculpture à Lusanga. On a demandé un prêt au musée qui nous l'a donné cette année. Donc, 4 ans après, on a cette sculpture. Et en fait, cette sculpture, ne fait que le retour à la maison, là où c'est la maison mère de l'art, la maison mère des sculptures, où il y en a beaucoup même qui ne sont pas encore nés, qui sont encore dans la terre, qui sont encore dans l'imaginaire des artistes. Et donc, on se souvient même que Picasso, il a puisé dans cette même marmite-là de la culture pende.
J'ai pas bien compris. Qu'est-ce qui est dans la terre? C'est les sculptures? Qu'est-ce qui est dans la terre? J'ai pas bien compris.
Ce qui est dans la terre, c'est le savoir-faire. Oui, c'est les ancêtres, l'inspiration, c'est toute la force. C'est toute la force même. L'Uyalu, comme on dit, l'Uyalu des ancêtres unis, tout ce qui se repose, c'est ça la force pour nous. Et on avait besoin de se connecter avec cette force. Et la sculpture revenue nous permet de faire une cérémonie qui va nous permettre de nous renouer, de connecter avec nos ancêtres. Et ça, c'est la partie qui est pour notre communauté, qu'on ne partage pas forcément parce que ce n'est pas le spectacle, c'est du réel, c'est ancré dans nos vies, ça agit. Donc la sculpture est là pour un but précis, pas seulement pour être montrée, mais pour jouer un rôle dans notre culture. Et elle va retourner la force à la terre, la force dont elle contenait, la force qui était destinée aux gens des plantations pour résister. Et donc elle sera là, elle sera entourée bien sûr avec toutes les autres sculptures, les sculptures en argile, des sculptures, les sculptures d'argile de Lusanga seront là, entourées, en train de communiquer dans la langue des Biteki, des sculptures. Ils vont sûrement parler aussi. Et il y a tout un univers, donc je vais me taire en tout cas, je demande aux gens d'être attentifs sur les écrans pour découvrir et voir, mais ce sera beaucoup de choses en même temps. Et il y a la forêt sacrée aussi qui fait partie des choses qu'on doit voir, parce qu'on ne voit pas que dans le musée, on voit notre projet dans l'ensemble, la post-plantation, qui est elle-même aussi une grande œuvre d'art vivante et réelle, pas seulement pour montrer, pas seulement pour la beauté, mais une œuvre d'art qui vit et qui évolue avec le temps. Ce n'est pas figé.
Okay. So first of all, it will be a surprise. What you will see in Lusanga, it's a surprise. Nevertheless, I will open the pot in which mother is cooking a stew a tiny bit, so you can have some little bits of the good smell that come out of mommy's kitchen, is what Cedar says. So one thing that is there, that is gonna be there, that is already there, is this sculpture of Balo. We call it differently. We don't call it Balo. We call it fungi. Fungi is a word I learned today, which means something like wind or spirit, or maybe spirit in the wind. Now, the name that is used for this particular sculpture in the West is Balo. So let's call it Balo so we can all know that we speak about the same thing. Now, this Balo sculpture, it has been a long struggle for this sculpture to return. Since 2020, so 4 years ago, we have been asking for a loan. And now, after this struggle, the loan has been granted. And so the sculpture can come back home to Congo. Here is something I didn't quite get. So what I understood is it will come home and it will be surrounded by ancestral sculptures, other sculptures. And there is a knowledge that is in the land, that is a knowledge of our ancestors, a knowledge that we can all learn from, that we can dig into and learn from. So the sculpture of Balo will be reunited with this knowledge. And it's a real knowledge, it's not imaginary, it's not just, Picasso, says Cedar, took elements from that knowledge. It is, just for clarification, Picasso, amongst many other sculptors from indigenous people, particularly from the region that Cedar and other members are from, took a lot of inspiration from Pende sculptures. Okay, so Picasso took knowledge from it. This knowledge, of course, it belongs to us foremost. We call it Luyalu. It's a force that connects, it's a force of our ancestors together with us. So the sculpture came back, and with this sculpture we did ceremonies, and we will do more ceremonies. Now this is not a spectacle. We don't do it for it to be shown to the world. We do it because it has a very precise goal. It has a very specific role in our society. Now the specific role is that it was made, the sculpture, when it was made, there's a long backstory on this, but Cedar just touches upon it. It was made to resist. It was made to resist the plantation system. And it will now reconnect with other sculptures. We will show other sculptures, not just this Balo sculpture. We will also show our sculptures, our original sculptures in clay that we make. They will also be exhibited in Lusanga. And certainly all these sculptures will communicate with each other in the language that sculptures speak. They will speak with each other, certainly. It will be an entire universe in which one should also be silent and listen, be attentive. As humans, we need to be attentive to what the sculptures tell us. Now, there will not only be the sculptures of Balo, the sculptures that we make, there will also be the sacred forest. Because outside the museum, there is a forest that is now growing, our post-plantation, the forest that we are regrowing on this formerly, cut down and exhausted plantation. And this sacred forest that we are rebuilding is in and of itself also one big art piece. Maybe it's the main art piece. And it is real. It is not there to please. It is not there to be an art piece. It is just there. And that's how it is an art piece.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's a lot that you already tell. It's a lot to encompass on this preview. I will, if you allow me, I will enter like Hicham and
Zullen we vragen
Renzo.
hoeveel procent hij nog heeft?
Yeah, that's maybe good. How much percentage do you have still on your phone? Maybe it's a good question.
Elle demande combien de pourcentage vous avez sur le téléphone. Est-ce que vous pouvez encore participer à la conversation ou bien vous êtes déjà à zéro presque?
Je suis en train de... Là, je crois que je dois mettre sur le powerbank. Donc, voilà. On est à Kinshasa.
Oh, he's going to put it on his power bag. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's maybe good that I will ask Hicham also to join. But if you hear something, there will be somebody for you translating. If you want to join us or to react, please do. You can join us here.
Donc il y aura quelqu'un, en l'occurrence Laurens, qui va essayer à traduire pour vous. Nous, on va parler ici, mais à tout moment, quand tu as envie d'intervenir ou contredire ou quoi que ce soit, fais-le. Elle vous invite à le faire.
Merci.
Thank you. Hicham,
Yeah.
we already heard a lot. And maybe it's good to say that for you are the extra person adding to this constellation, because Renzo, what I already said, he has a connection with this group of people since 2012, maybe earlier, around the project of Enjoy Poverty. And for this Biennale, you were asked to join as a curator. Maybe what was your first encounter with the relationship between Renzo and the plantation workers, and what do you then add as a curator?
As a curator, yeah. Well, it was really nice actually to be working with Renzo, because we knew each other from when I was working in Paris for Lafayette, and we had a couple of conversations. I knew the work, but we never worked together. So when I got the phone call would you like to work with Renzo? Elko phoned me. I was like, okay. I was a bit hesitant too. I was reserved because of many reasons. And yeah,
I will of course ask a bit. What does hesitance come from?
I will talk about it.
Yeah.
But in the end, I was also very excited.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was to call Renzo and to meet him, and then we started a process of 5 months together, talking with him and with CATPC, with everyone. So Cedar, Mathieu, or Mbuku, or whoever was part of the collective. And could join at that moment. And what you've seen, I mean, the translation was a big part of that. And for me, it was really important to understand who is Renzo within this constellation. And as I am an outsider, I was an outsider, it was particularly interesting for me to also look at it as an outsider and to also share this with Renzo and to share this with the group as well. And also to ask the collective the questions that are needed and how Renzo fits within this constellation and how the construction between the many different parties, such as the Institute of Human Activities, is related to CATPC and what the governance structure within that is. And also how CATPC themselves are governed and how they are constructed. So I've been to Lusanga, I've been together with Renzo and Janke, who is the director of the Institute of Human Activities. And so we met also in Lusanga, and we did many, many sessions. And in these sessions, I could ask questions, basically. What I did was asking questions. That's basically what I did.
And what was the most important question for you then? Because you said, I had a bit of hesitance, and then I was excited. And you say, like, I tried, maybe about the role of Renzo, mainly. Yeah. So what was the question then?
I tried to understand Renzo.
Yeah.
I tried to understand him and his reasons for doing the things that he did. And I had troubles with, for instance, Enjoy Poverty. That was really hard for me.
And why?
That was really, well, because of the fact, I mean, we discussed this, and there was a particular point where I felt that, you know, whatever comes out of this film and whatever it produces also in good for the world, it does not for those people that were portrayed, right? And did you notice that? So that was one of the questions. And yes, so we had a conversation about that. But also at the same time, I could build up a huge respect for Renzo and a huge respect for the way he has conducted this in the period that he has been there, and to really go in depth and to really see how it really works and to see sort of the many steps and the subtleties of the project, or the intricacies, or the, you know, so it has been for me a journey. Also in those 5 months, it was really good also to work together, to work on a plan, first of all, and to deliver that to the Mondrian Fund. And secondly, when we got the yes, to then start that process of working on the project. Next to that, you will see there's also a publication, and then in that publication there is some letters that are being published, and some of the questions that I posed in a group session or in a Zoom or whatever, then suddenly Sedar, whoever, Mathieu, would write a letter back to me answering these questions. So these questions related, for instance, on the position of Renzo, that's one of them. Why chocolate sculptures? Why not show your own clay sculptures? These kind of things. The white cube, you know, why the white cube? Why is it there? And then the rest of the project. At a certain point, Renzo and I came to a decision in these 5 months when talking to each other, that we ask ourselves the questions, or the question of what is at stake, and for whom are we doing this? So at that point, we thought, you know, it's not about us. It's not about, you know, us now doing this Venice project or whatever. It's about them. So what is at stake is their life and their quest and aim to recuperate the land and to recuperate their fragmented histories. And this is where it became super interesting for me, because that's part of my work, doing as a director of Jan van Eyck, dealing a lot with ecological questions and decoloniality questions. So at that point, I was like, okay, so we are dealing with a very complex situation here, of many different parties that are working together, aiming for something, to bring back the sacred forest and to recuperate the lost knowledges and to build community, in fact, because that's what they did. You have to understand, they live on a former plantation that was scraped of everything, and in which monoculture was brought in. And for that, they needed laborers from other villages. So these are the descendants of these laborers. They are from many different villages that come together and form a community. They have to form a community. So this is the complexity of the project, right? You get into sort of a box in a box thing. You know, there's the ecological side, there's the political side, there's the economical side, and you try to understand and mend that together.
Yeah, and then you have maybe the structure of the Biennale, of maybe like how the Biennale is normally structured.
Yeah.
You say it's about them, but in Venice it's also about what you present there. So,
well,
what do you do then as a curator? How do you
for me-
combine these two roles, or can you
Well, for
bring
me,
them together?
I mean, Venice is great, but it's not the most important.
No.
So for me, Venice is just a part of a structure and a
but
project that
of
is
course, there's a
already
bit
there.
of pressure from Venice to present something, right, or not?
Yeah, and obviously you will present something.
Yeah.
This will happen. And there already was a structure. I mean, Renzo has been working with them for such a long time. I mean, the sculptures that will be shown, that process was already there. I think what I enjoyed and what I think that I might have been able to contribute maybe is to find a way, sort of a moment of consolidation of what is this project really about, and who are the players in this, and how are they related to each other, and how does this play out in a sense, if anything, I suppose. But Renzo might be able to
No, I think your role...
talk about that.
If anybody's interested in this. I think Hisham's role has been very, very important. And I've been telling it to everybody who wants to hear. Because indeed you asked questions most of the time. You're a very soft-spoken and gentle person, but you're not naive. And you sense it when there's something shady going on, and you will point at it.
Sure.
The world is full of shady things, of course. And I had been making some shady works, if you want to consider it that. Enjoy Poverty is, you say it's maybe good for the world, but not good for the people in it. I would, of course, argue with that, but Hicham asked me a very, very important question. He said at some point, okay, Renzo, you do this out of some kind of your ideas of what it is, what institutional critique is. How can art be made that is critical of the economic conditions within which art is made, right? That's why I made Enjoy Poverty. In a strange way, to me, that is some type of institutional critique, which is, you know, I guess most people are familiar with the term. But Hicham asked me, yes, but if your institutional critique, the way you formulate it, is dominating in this project, then where is the space for their institutional critique? They have institutional critique too. So if you take seriously, Hicham asked me, that's how I remember it, if you take seriously that you want to build this level playing field, right? If there's a museum in Amsterdam that is built with the money extracted from plantations, the Stedelijk Museum, for example, brick by brick it's been built with labor, with money taken away from people who had no say in it. I think that's a little bit strange. I think people should be invited to co-decide what the future of the Stedelijk Museum is. It is very strange that somebody like me, there are other artists in this room, are invited. Oh, you're a great artist, you know, some curator decides it. You get to do an interesting show in the Stedelijk Museum with your videos about, you know, or your paintings or whatever you can show there. That's all cool. It's very, very strange to me that entire communities who, again, have been brick by brick paying every single brick of the Stedelijk Museum, we're talking about plantations in Indonesia, that they are never, ever asked what they think of the Stedelijk Museum and what should be placed in it. I think it's ridiculous to me. And I don't understand how nobody already 100 years ago, but even especially in this period, has not opened up this question within the Stedelijk Museum. Okay, that being said, if Hicham asked me, if you take that seriously, if you take this, then of course I cannot tell CATPC that, oh, you know, there's a white cube and, you know, it's good for this or that reason. You should really step back, because otherwise you're not actually doing what you're saying that you want to be doing. So that was a big, you know, he challenged me, you challenged me, and it was very important for me. It also took away a little bit of the responsibility I sometimes felt. So in a way, Hicham's question to me, Hicham's questions to CATPC, and the changes that occurred out of it, things have changed, definitely. It liberated me from being like almost being responsible for this project. I'm no longer. Sure, I'm responsible for a certain part of it, but many other people are responsible for other parts of it. So it's not my art project that there is CATPC, there's a white cube, there's a forest and a museum. Like 90% of that I didn't even invent. The whole idea of forests, of these types of sculptures, they have been not invented by me, but by Cedar, by Mbuku, by many, many other people. So your questions in a way liberated me. I could just, be myself again in a way.
But at the same time, you could not, and you should not distance yourself from it. You are part of it, and
sure.
You are a node of this larger network, as what they would call allies.
Yeah.
So we also, for me, what I really learned from this project is that for CATPC, they have revised or turned the means of production around. So they are utilizing these means of production to benefit them. So in the same time, they would utilize Renzo, and who Renzo is, Balo, the white cube, in a way to work for them. On the other hand, we can also learn from them in many, many different ways, because the end result of all of this is the recuperation of the land, which means that they want to bring back the forest. The forest is a sanctuary that gives life. Mm-hmm. It's something that we might have lost.
Yeah.
Bring back the forest, and it will bring back life. At the same time, there's other questions, like the Congo Basin is the second largest forest, but it's the most important forest at this point, because the Amazon is retracting, which means that what they do there to recuperate or bring back the forest with the community as a central to that is mostly important. This is hugely important for us as well. And this system, so that you see the complexity of this project, right? There's this artistic side, but then there's also this ecological side, which is super important. All of these things matter in this project, so that makes it super exciting as well to work on it. But it's also quite difficult to comprehend in a sense, right? Mm.
Yeah. I continue to see a role in it, for myself in it, and just picking up on what you just said about the forest and the Congo Basin. Dutch development money, millions, tens of millions of dollars has been going to companies that continue to cut down forests and turn it into monoculture plantations. Mm-hmm. That's development money. That's insane. So if I have a role in the future in relation to this project, obviously these types of funds should go to indigenous communities, and not for them to be forced to cut down their own forests, but to create the development the way they see fit while preserving those forests. None of the people I ever met, I've been traveling in Congo for 20 years, nobody wants to cut down their forests. They do it because it's the only way to get $5, $10, $20, maybe maximum $50 per month so that they can feed their children. Mm-hmm. And they do it for international companies. If they could make $50 or $100 or whatever it may be, this is the wage that people get in Congo, while preserving the forest, which is what they all intrinsically seem to be wanting, it will be much, much better for the planet. So there's a lot of policy work, advocacy work to be done. Mm-hmm. And I will do it. I have been doing it, and I will do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Renzo, listening to you and also thinking about like the movement you made all the way from Enjoy Poverty to the White Cube to this, it's almost as if you're stepping outside of your own artwork in a way. Like, it feels a bit like that.
It's not his artwork.
No, but it started as your artwork. Are you stepping out of it in a way?
It's a difficult question to me, because I actually do not distance myself from the film Enjoy Poverty. I think it's a very truthful film, but it's truthful in an extremely uncomfortable way. In this film, I am a white male bully who uses his position of privilege to point out to other people that they are not privileged, and that in the end, even a critical art piece about these discrepancies will only benefit rich people and not poor people. Let's say that that's the thesis of Enjoy Poverty. Well, it's true. This is how the world runs. It's true for what happens in Gaza. It's true for the stuff that makes my iPhone function. It's true for 99% of the economies that we rely on. It is run by bullies. Many of these bullies are white men. Not exclusively, but many of them are. So I inhabited this role to make, in my view, a very unpleasant, a very disruptive film that, in my mind, again, at the time, it's many years ago, it came out in 2008. So it's like prehistory by now. We didn't even have iPhones at the time. But it was, I think, quite an objective representation of reality. That's what I wanted to make, and I think to a certain degree I achieved that. Now, it's also a really very, very damning, disruptive, unpleasant film. And I would never, ever want to make a film like that again. And I didn't, luckily, because it would kill myself. I mean, even maybe other people, but also myself. So, and yet I think that it has its place, right? Luckily, I don't have to make that film again. And I think what's happening now with the biennial, it's almost yin and yang. I mean, I think if I put myself in the center, quite physically and as an image also, of those inequalities and exhibited how I was benefiting from it and impoverished people were not benefiting from it, I gave myself also a devoir, homework. I pointed at a problem, now it's time to fix it. And we have other people in this room who fix problems. But I tried it in my little way. And I think thanks to Hicham, thanks to Cedar, thanks to even my parents, my wife, to all the members of CATPC, the whole world, I would almost say, we are now coming to a position, to the Mondrian Foundation, extremely courageous, really very courageous to do this. We are now coming to a point that a community, and it's only one community, Cedar pointed it out really well, it's only one community, but yet it's one community that would otherwise have had no right to art. It would be denied, they would just be sucked dry. And then we can make nice critical art pieces about how they're being sucked dry, and we can exhibit those in our museums. That I did with Enjoy Poverty, right? But we're now have arrived at a point, thanks to many, many people, that it can be turned around. And this is why CATPC is in the Dutch Pavilion, as far as I'm concerned. It's to turn it around, to finally reverse that, to finally create a level playing field. That's what I even wanted when I made Enjoy Poverty. I just wanted to exhibit how big the fucking problem was. How big it was, and how we're all part of it. Nobody here is not part of that problem. So, we have arrived at a stage that it can be turned around. And it comes with a disclaimer. It's very small, it's one exhibition amongst many, one group of, let's say, 300 people in Lusanga who benefit from this in one way or the other. As Cedar points out so well, even for Lusanga, people in Lusanga, the privilege becomes an unhealthy privilege if it is not being shared. I learned that so much from Cedar.
Very interesting.
So I think this indeed, as Hicham said, this is what we learn from each other. But the road ahead is, of course, far, far longer, so I have still things to do. But yes, I am in service of CATPC, for sure.
Hicham, you wanted to react?
Yeah. The idea of the unhealthy privileges is a very strong idea. It's an idea about responsibilities. At a certain point, we were thinking about this idea of cascading privileges. So we are all privileged in one or the other way to someone else. So Mondrian Funds is privileged in a way to us, and we are privileged towards CATPC, and CATPC is privileged towards other people from other communities. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of cascading. And with that is also a cascading of responsibilities, or a sharing of responsibilities, and an awareness of this, that we are all responsible in one sense for someone else. I think that's a very strong idea. And they call it unhealthy privilege because of the fact that they really feel burdened by it, so at a certain point they would say, we want to share this project and do it in the four corners of Congo, so that it's everywhere. I think that's a very strong idea. And as you say, I mean, in this process also, the way we try to conduct it is that we don't always have to agree. That's important for us, you know. And Renzo has his ideas, and I have my
mean between
ideas.
you and Renzo, or
CATPC?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, you know. So for me, whether this is a true moment in which, and a turning point, for me, it's. I'm much more with my head in where they are. For me, what I learned from them is that they have no intention with the Venice Biennale to be part of the world that we are in, sort of to be a contributor or to be part of the world that we live in the West. They want to remain there. For them, the recuperation of that land is most important. So for me, also that's a turnaround, right? It's like we should be looking at them. So what does it make it important in order to say we want to stay in the place that we are? We are not looking at the West, but we are looking at ourselves, you know? So for me, again, that's sort of almost a rejection of Venice in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, so I'm more on that level. See how we sort of sometimes also differ in these ideas.
Sure. Because your vision is not.
No, he agrees with me. But in the end, if whether it's about, wait, we'll get there. No, but whether it's about the processes like reverse gentrification at first, and then afterwards the link between plantations and museums, and where museums are in fact the repositories of knowledge, let's say stolen knowledge, or the repositories and a push for a sort of supreme knowledge. That's one thing. The other side is that we are looking at a community that has agency and has had agency already, and who have the knowledge in order to bring back that land. When that land is brought back, when the forest is brought back, that's what they call the supermarket. This is the life, the lifeboat, the life, hoe noem je dat, the cord. When you have the forest, then you have everything, in fact. This is what I'm trying to say. It's a very different way of thinking. It's what I would like to propose is that if we would like to move beyond our ideas that relate to modernity, beyond our ideas of our lives here in the West, we need to move way beyond that. We need to go back to that what we have erased before. Modernity is just one idea amongst many, many, many. It's one epistemology amongst many epistemologies, and we are looking at other epistemologies here. So I would want to put forward and propose to turn it around and look at them. Venice is just a part of something. So, I mean, does it make sense?
Of course, yeah.
Renzo, for you, like in most of the projects you already did, there's always a friction. So something you want to expose, but it's difficult to solve it in a way. It almost feels as if I listen now to Hicham that you found a way to solve it in a way, or to bring it together.
Yes,
the friction is gone.
Exactly.
Is that true?
The first thing you said, I want solutions. You said that in our first meeting.
But there's always some friction, right? Or you try to create an equal playing field. You're speaking about turning it around.
Yeah.
But is there also a moment that you think, yes, there's still some friction going on, or still something like something I struggle with?
There's a lot of friction. Several people in this room, besides Hicham, have been in Lusanga. It is devastating to meet people who cannot feed their children. That is not a friction I created. I'm not personally responsible for it. I am a beneficiary from it. So the friction is there even if I don't produce it. There's going to be, there's a lot of, there's a big depository worldwide of friction that I don't have to do anything for it to be there. I have tried in the past, and this has evolved, but I've tried in the past to make as good as I could representations of existing frictions. I never, ever tried to create frictions that weren't already there. I just tried to exhibit them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even in the most grueling scenes in Enjoy Poverty, I did not create that friction. That friction was there. I created something so it would become, that's how I see it, that it would become visible. What I learned from Hicham is that CATPC sees other frictions and sees frictions differently than I do. And if I'm serious in my whole story that I just repeated about museums and what have you, then obviously I cannot impose the way I see frictions to other people. I should just, I have my frictions, other people have their frictions. So to me, my role in this pavilion, and this is a tiny bit in contradiction to what maybe is the official line of the Mondrian Fund, is to make sure that this door that has been opened, that it remains open. I didn't build the gate. I didn't build the fence between people who have the right to art and people that don't have the right to art. But the fence is there. This fence has now been opened. Of course, for a long time, people of color, indigenous people, black people have been, since, maybe 50 years it started, now since 10 years, a lot, finally, art has become for everybody. Color-wise, class-wise, not yet. There are giant communities around the world, and I think people working on the plantations that have funded these museums is just one of many examples that are completely excluded from it, as if they have no ideas about what art is, or what the world is, or what spirituality is, or what matter is. Of course they do. So that gate that is there, that fence that is there, there's a gate, together with all these other people, the courage of many other people, again, also very much so the Mondrian Fund for allowing this. I help to open this gate a little bit, and I have to make sure it's not closed on them. That's enough. I think all the frictions will be there. Mm-hmm. I didn't create them, they're there. I think that's good enough for me. Yeah.
But if you are in November and this Venice Biennale is over, how do you make sure that the gate doesn't close again?
It will not close.
Yeah. And why not?
Because I will not let it close.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I die or God knows.
Yeah, exactly. That's the question. You did both, yeah.
It will not close. They will get a lot of land back. Yeah. Balo came back, that was a big deal. The sculpture. Maybe we should talk about it. The sculpture, it was a lot of work. Behind the scenes, many people worked on it. Hicham worked on it. People of the Mondrian Foundation worked very hard on it. Cedar has been sitting in endless conversations with the people from that museum. I have contributed my part. It was a lot of work, and together we made it happen. It's very, very important. Now, other things also need to be, I'm not saying the whole world needs to be restituted, but we need to create level playing fields, because the world will become a much more interesting place. If not just rich kids can decide what art is. That's completely boring. So, yeah, it will not close.
Maybe you already mentioned like the Balo sculpture and how difficult it was to get it and to exhibit it, and that they already were busy with it for a long time to get it in Lusanga.
Yeah. Maybe we should get
what changed for him? Maybe that he finally managed to get it there, and what does that mean?
Can I translate?
Yeah, if it's possible, I look at the technician. Maybe we can have him in again. Yeah, and maybe you can Renzo translate because he will hear it.
Cédar, tu es là?
Oui, je suis là.
Peut-être vous avez des trucs de manière générale, vous avez écouté à travers le traducteur. Peut-être tu as des remarques générales, mais une question spécifique de la modératrice, c'est Merlène. Qu'est-ce que ça change le fait que Balo est retourné, vu les efforts les 4 années dernières? Quel est l'impact de la présence de la sculpture? Pourquoi c'est important, peut-être dans le passé et maintenant?
Déjà, je vais toucher sur fait que tu as dit que tu ne tournerais plus jamais des films comme Angel Poverty.
Pardon, on vous
Heureusement
écoute.
que nous, on est là aujourd'hui pour tourner d'autres films comme Angel Poverty parce que c'est important.
Pardon, on
Là, par exemple, à ce qui se passe à Bouma, le réalisateur que je suis devenu, la communauté d'artistes que nous sommes à Lusanga, on a un projet dans le vrai, dans le réel, avec ce qui se passe dans notre pays. Par rapport à la sculpture, elle est à Lusanga. Allô? Il y a la connexion.
On vous écoute, oui. Allez-y.
Ça a bloqué. Oui.
On vous écoute quand même. Si vous parlez.
Is eruit.
Nee. Nou ja, wat hij in het kort... Oh, ja.
Ouais. Désolé, c'est la connexion qui... Oui, avec la sculpture, déjà le fait qu'elle soit venue, comme je disais, c'est un combat de 4 ans. On n'a pas lâché, on a continué à demander un prêt. Je crois que c'est une question peut-être que le professeur Zeleomba nous aurait répondu facilement. Pourquoi ça marche maintenant? Je crois qu'il a dû, en tant qu'Africain, en tant que quelqu'un qui comprend notre langage, nos demandes, il a dû s'appuyer aussi, mais nous avons dû aussi prendre d'autres chemins, un peu pour atteindre notre but. Nous avons fait un FT en cours de route qui a permis qu'on puisse revenir aux tables de négociation où que notre demande soit considérée parce que voilà, et aussi notre collectif a grandi. Il a beaucoup plus de membres, il a beaucoup plus de visibilité et je pense que les musées ne pouvaient pas ignorer tout ça. Donc à la fin, ils ont fini par considérer notre demande et c'est une bonne chose. Et la partie qui est spirituelle, le fait que la sculpture est à Lusanga et le rôle qu'elle va jouer dans la terre, ça c'est la partie à garder, c'est comme on dit, top secret. Donc ça c'est entre nous et les ancêtres. D'ailleurs quand on faisait la cérémonie avec la sculpture, donc Mathieu, mon collègue, mon frère, avec nous tous, on a dû faire partir tout le monde qui n'était pas concerné dans la cérémonie. Donc il y avait tout le monde qui est parti. Et Hicham était là. Et ça aurait été bien qu'il reste, mais la loi, c'est la loi. Donc, Renzo était là, ils ont dû tous partir. Il y avait d'autres invités aussi qui étaient là. Mais comme la chose ne concernait que les gens concernés, donc on était restés entre nous et avec les gens qui avaient été choisis par la communauté, par notre collectif, oui, pour participer à cette réunion. Donc la sculpture a fait des choses invisibles que je ne peux pas expliquer et que nous-mêmes aussi, on ne comprend pas totalement, mais qu'on sait que c'est là, on sait que ça existe, on sait que ça joue un rôle. Et donc voilà, on attend l'impact, les effets.
Ok. Je traduis la partie sur la sculpture. La partie sur le film, j'ai pas bien compris. Mais je commence avec la sculpture, si vous êtes d'accord.
I think it's well.
Okay. Now, this over about the sculpture. It was a struggle that took 4 years. And why did we first not get it, and then later we did get it? Maybe Professor Eziluomba, he's a newly appointed curator at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States. He probably knows why first, before he was appointed, it was not possible. And as he was then later appointed as curator for African art at this museum in the United States, he probably knows why later on it became possible. Why? Because he's an African curator, because he understands the language of sculptures, and so he certainly, in ways that we don't know, supported us in reaching our goal. Now, prior to that, we did a lot of other things to get on the negotiation table with this museum. So one of the things we did, says Cedar, is creating this NFT. As a little background, this is not what Cedar said, I do just do it so you understand. At some point, CATPC in Lusanga downloaded some images from the website of the museum, images that depict this particular sculpture, and turned it into an NFT with some tech wizards from Berlin. And so the NFT all of a sudden became, in the digital sphere, the claim of CATPC on this sculpture. So despite the museum not allowing a loan at that point, there was this new digital object, the NFT, that was recuperated, claimed by CATPC, and it was also sold at Art Basel, etc. So that was as a background. So it allowed us, as Cedar, to get a position at the negotiation table. Also, our collective CATPC has grown. It has grown in numbers, obviously, but also in our understanding of things. It has grown in the visibility that we have. And so at some point, this museum in the United States could not longer ignore us and had to consider our request. And another point for me, I think the fact that it was now, the renewed request was in conjunction with the Venice Biennale, maybe also played a role. Now, on a spiritual level, says Cedar, the role of this sculpture is, in the end, it's top secret. There is a connection with the earth. There is a connection with certain spiritual powers of our ancestors. When the sculpture returned, Mathieu, my brother and friend, was there, and we had to ask everybody who was not really needed for the ceremony to leave. Even Hicham, we asked him to leave, even if maybe he should have been there, said Cedar. But okay, even Hicham left, and Renzo had to leave, many other people had to leave. So only with a few select people, we did some things that have significance in the spiritual, invisible realm, things that even we don't know, we don't really understand, but we know it's there with the sculpture.
Maybe we can see some of the pictures.
Oh yeah,
and we can talk about it.
Yeah,
Cedar, on peut montrer quelques photos de... Allez-y, oui.
Avec le film, je voulais rajouter juste pour préciser, j'ai cru entendre que tu regrettais ou tu disais que tu ne voudrais plus faire un film comme Enjoy Poverty.
Correct.
Moi, ça me choque que tu dises ça, parce que le monde a besoin de savoir. Le monde a besoin de savoir ce qui se passe en Palestine. Il faut des réalisateurs courageux qui prennent la bravoure à deux mains pour dire les choses, au risque même de leur vie. Parce que l'art doit jouer un rôle dans la vie des gens. Et pas seulement pour les spectacles, ou pour aussi jouer un rôle. Je crois que ce film Enjoy Poverty a permis au monde de comprendre une autre face que les gens ne pouvaient même pas soupçonner, une autre face de la violence et de la laideur de l'humain qui se corrompt et qui contamine, quoi. Et on voit dans Enjoy Poverty, c'est bien. Moi, je disais que on n'avait pas les outils pour faire des films, on n'avait pas assez de racines pour s'implanter dans le métier ou dans le domaine. Maintenant qu'on a appris, maintenant qu'on sait faire, je crois.
Oui.
Okay. So far, what Cedar said so far is, so here's Cedar speaking. I heard you speaking about Enjoy Poverty, and I think I heard you say that you regret that film and that you would never want to make a film like that again. So to me, says Cedar, that is shocking. Shocking that you say that. I think the world needs to know what happens, what is happening now in Palestine, what happens in the east of our country. People should know about these things. And there are courageous artists, filmmakers, that even risk their lives to make visible these realities. And art should indeed play its role. This film, Endure Poverty, has permitted for many people who would otherwise not see that, the other face of violence. People possibly do not know what the face of corruption is, what the face of contamination is within this violence. And that's something that this film shows. So you did a good job, says Siddharth. Showing that corruption and that contamination. We did not have the tools to make films. We also don't have roots in this world of filmmaking. But now, and that's where his answer stopped. Cédar, tu veux reprendre, vous disiez que vous n'aviez pas des racines dans le métier du cinéma, dans la pratique du cinéma.
Avant, oui. Maintenant, on en a. Et c'est avec plaisir qu'on doit continuer à parler de ce qui se passe à Goma. On doit continuer de parler de ce qui se passe à Gaza. On doit continuer de parler de tout ce qui est d'injustice dans l'humanité. Parce que l'art aussi peut jouer un rôle de rendre le monde meilleur en dénonçant la violence et en la combattant avec les outils que nous disposons. Pas par la violence, mais par la force que peut donner l'art, le pouvoir de parler, de s'exprimer, de toucher un grand monde.
Okay. So before we didn't have these types of tools, we also didn't have any roots in this world of filmmaking. But now we do, and we will make our own films. Films that talk about violence, talk that injustices in Goma, in the east of the DRC, DR Congo, in Gaza, in many other places, there are these injustices. And this exposing them, exhibiting them, or understanding them better is a role that art can play. Art should not simply be about beautifying the world, it should also be about rendering it better.
Thank you.
We lopen een beetje uit, hè?
Yeah, we are running a bit out of time, and I also promised to go to some questions from the audience. But maybe
exactly.
De foto's zijn wel heel mooi.
Ja,
maybe
zou ik dat heel snel
in English,
inleiden?
maybe?
C'est là, on peut montrer les photos du retour de la sculpture.
Yeah, maybe to explain a bit, you're just back from Congo.
Yeah, we just came back.
Witnessed the ceremony in which the sculpture, the Balo, returned to Lusanga.
Yes.
Yes. If I understood you correctly, you couldn't be there with all the ceremony parts.
That's right.
Well, the sequence ones, no, we were kicked out.
But maybe, like for you just came back. It's fresh in your memory.
Yeah.
What happened there? For you?
Yeah, for me, this was one of the most beautiful moments I experienced in my life. I mean, basically, when it took a long time to get Balo back. It was really a struggle, and when we got the yes, and Balo would come back, and we then decided, because we had a two-way route. We're going to get Balo, we're not going to get Balo. So we're not going to get Balo, there's a strategy. We're going to get Balo, there's a strategy. And so when Balo came in, we decided we are going to do the ceremony. And this ceremony was important because this was always on the table. There needs to be a ceremony. So we decided we are going to go there. And at the same time, then Renzo and CATPC would also be filming, and we would document this beautiful moment. And then we were stuck at the airport for 2 days, Renzo and I, because our visa was rejected. So we were sent back, actually, from Kinshasa back to Zaventem with police escort, confiscated our passports. So we spent 2 days in Zaventem together at the airport until we got our new visa.
Well, we didn't get a new visa.
We got a visa for long.
No, what we got is that René, the president of CATPC, said, well, just get on the plane, I'll take care of it.
Exactly. And
by the time you land, you'll probably have one.
Yeah, exactly. But the irony of it is that we traveled with Balo, because Balo was also late, because it was delayed in Washington. So at the time we were back in Zaventem, Balo was there. We could view it in a depot. Also, Eelco was there and the whole group of Mondriaan. And Andy, the curator of African art, he was also there. So we traveled together back to Kinshasa and then to Lusanga. arriving in Lusanga, then the truck came in, as you can also see here. And Balo is, in fact, a sculpture this size. But it was in a case this size, with a vitrine that size. So it was a big package that needed to be transported. So it came into Lusanga, and then the ceremony would start. And he was there. So we did the ceremony, a lot of speeches, really beautiful. And the rest is actually quite unclear to me what happened, because there were agreements between the VMFA and CATPC on how to treat the sculpture. And one of the main issues that we've had in acquiring or getting the sculpture back was, can they touch it? What can they do with the sculpture? What kind of ceremony can take place? And at first, this is why the vitrine also came in, because it had to be locked within the vitrine. They made the decision, well, you can't touch the sculpture, but then maybe you can, because I wasn't there what happened at a certain point.
Well, I only have parts of the story.
We'll fragment it together.
At some point, what I did witness was Mathieu, another member of CATPC, Mathieu Kassiama, entering a discussion quite strong with Mr. Ezeluomba, whom you see here on the left-hand side. Mathieu is in the middle, and then this Balo sculpture is there. So here they're putting the vitrine on the sculpture or taking it off, I don't know. But there was Mathieu said, well, we actually would like to take the sculpture to all these Unilever plantations in the DRC. You know, there's not just this one, there are many. And this sculpture was made in 1931 as something to galvanize the resistance against forced labor on plantations and everything that comes with it, cutting down forests, raping women, everything that comes with it. That's the basis of the Unilever empire. Did you know that Mark Rutte was for a long time the PR person for Unilever? Yeah. It's true. But okay, so that's the origin of the Unilever business empire. So Mathieu said, you know, Andy, dear Mr. Ezeluomba, can we please take it to all these other plantations? And I mean, God bless Professor Ezeluomba. You know, he was in a very difficult position there, you know. And he said, well, that wasn't quite the agreement, but I do think that you can take it out of its casing now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Mathieu said, well, that's great, let's do that.
So then Jean Cavata, who is here, who normally plays in the judgment of the white cube, he is the white cube that then is being judged, and who then has to bring back Balo, because this is the quest, right? You can see it in the film, in the plantations and museums, and in the white cube, where Mathieu and Cedar are given the assignment, go find Balo. This is what the series of plantations and museums is about. So the next step is to get Balo. So he takes Balo from the vitrine, from the stand, and starts walking with it. And I didn't know what's happening, so...
Nobody knew.
Nobody knew. So then again, 200-300 people follow them, and it becomes a procession. And they're singing, and they're happy, and they're walking. So what was the whole idea? To walk Balo to the Kisendu, to the old traditional place where it can meet and be with all the other sculptures. And for me, that was a total surprise. Nobody knew that this was going to happen. And it was placed there. And this is where it is amongst all the other sculptures. So that was the ceremony. We didn't know. And it happened. And at the same time, I was like, you know, as a curator, you know, thinking, yeah, we need a ceremony and we need to do something for the kids as well.
The wall text was not in order.
You know, we need to do this and that and that. And then in the end, everything was arranged. The kids were there, all of them, with the ceremony. They even walked with us. They performed the Judgment of the White Cube live.
Maybe you should explain what that is.
The Judgment of the White Cube?
Yeah.
So that's a film in which CATPC, or actually CATPC plays members of Lusanga, of whatever community, that are putting the white cube on trial, in which you have a trial with a judge and with, let's say, lawyers. And then this trial, they start to play this trial where the question is, what did the white cube do for us? and in the end, to come to the conclusion in which the judge then says the white cube needs to do good for you, and one of those things is to bring back Balo. So that's one of the things.
Land
so
and the art.
The land and the art.
Yeah.
So this is a film that you will see in Venice. And at the same time, you will also see the other film, The Return of Balo, which is what we did there. So,
and there will be some sculptures too,
and there will
right?
be,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
But maybe before, because I really promised to go to the audience for a couple of questions, but maybe just for me as a last question. You're totally in it. I hear stories, but it's too much even for you to understand everything, to comprehend everything, because it's a lot. And people are maybe going to Venice. Maybe if they are really courageous, they go to Lusanga. Maybe they just stay at home. But if we see this as a really big artwork, ecological, but also artistically, from which distance or from which position should you see it? And what kind of perspective do you need to really understand everything?
Well, I don't see it as an artwork, but anyways.
Yeah, okay.
That's up to anyone. I mean, that's up to you if you want to view it as an artwork. I view it more as a system.
Yeah.
You know, as a gathering of different elements.
Maybe then, what kind of mindset do you need for people to see and understand?
I do feel well. It does give you a sense of what art can be or what art is. I mean, it puts you in a different position in relation to how we view art.
Yeah.
As something to be viewed or presented or shown, made visible, that needs to be produced in a certain way, that needs to be kept, that needs to be conserved. It poses questions in relation to that, you know? So that's art for me. That's really art. As if when Sadar speaks of the sacred forest as an artwork. So in that sense, it is definitely about art, but I wouldn't call it an artwork. It's not an authorship. You know, it's not in the sense of art as we perceive it in the West. An artwork is authored.
I think that's the big thing. All authorships have completely dissolved.
Exactly.
Even the way CATPC, I mean, I say that about myself, of course. That's clear to me, anyway. But even the way members of CATPC make sculptures, somebody's name is on it.
Yeah.
Because he or they had some ideas. But there are beautiful pictures. Maybe there's one picture, I believe, I don't know if we have it, in which you see how people make sculptures together with sometimes 10 people working on the same sculpture that is then authored by Mbuku or Lisette or Huguette. But there's like 10 people working on the same sculpture. And of all the revenues, also beautiful. Some people make sculptures that all of a sudden, or drawings or other things that suddenly, are being sold to some collector or this or that. Virtually all the money 90% of the money goes to the collective, with which they, feed each other and buy this land back. This is one. There's another one, I believe, from above.
Zoomed out. Yeah, this one.
Yeah. So we had this fantastic cameraman. His name is Jürgen Lisse. He's not here tonight, but he came and he filmed this.
Yeah, the nice thing of the sculptures is that they are stories in stories. Basically, the stories of the plantation, of the history, of the community are all in the sculptures.
Yeah.
So what they do is they commune, they talk together, they create together. So this communal aspect to me is also part of, let's say, a different perception or way of thinking in relation to what it means to produce or to create art. So I think, that's something I at least learned a lot from.
I think an entry point to your question, an entry point could simply be the works, the way they are they will be, if all goes well, with the transportation in Venice, in the Pavilion. Because indeed, many of those sculptures hold all these stories in and of themselves, both in, the way they're sculpted, like there's figurines in it and there's metaphors in it, there's storytelling in it, but you also know that it's literally made in Lusanga, in clay by these hands that on this former plantation. And then it's reproduced in products that also come from plantations, but like the products that you can buy in a supermarket, right? So there are many layers and contradictions even in the sculptures.
Yes.
So just really observing the sculptures, and there will be time and space for that. Hicham, together with Cedar and other people, has created the setup, if you will, how to really be able to engage with those sculptures. So they will do a part of the trick, and then just breathe and be there, and it will come.
Thanks. I promised I would go back to you. I think we have time for 2, maybe 3 questions, but we really would stop at 10 because you also need to go back to Maastricht, I understood.
Yeah,
so is there maybe somebody with a very important question? And you can maybe raise your hand and I come with you with the microphone. Or maybe we had to...
there you go.
I come to you.
Does that help? Hey.
Helemaal voor jullie langs. Ja.
Oh, jij houdt hem vast? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, also from abroad. The question is to Renzo and Hicham, or whichever one of you would like to answer it. I find something that's very unique about art is that it doesn't have an obligation towards truth. It should be informed by truth and aware of it, but it doesn't necessarily have an obligation to it. In relationship to the concept of this project and the aims that have been spoken about, and also in relationship to the last questions, could you say a little bit more about the relationship that truth plays in this project, in its ambitions and possible outcomes?
Nice question. Thank you, Hab.
Cédar, on vous demande... Il y a un monsieur là qui demande... il dit que l'art ne doit pas nécessairement raconter la vérité. Il y a une sorte de liberté, de justement peut-être de mentir même, ou de créer une autre vérité. Par rapport à ce projet, est-ce que c'est le but de toujours dire la vérité, ou est-ce qu'on pourrait aussi raconter une féerie, quelque chose qui n'est pas tout à fait vrai, mais qui est quand même très beau, ou bien pas beau? Est-ce que ça doit être vrai, ou est-ce qu'on peut prendre, en tant qu'artiste, une certaine liberté envers le, entre guillemets, vrai?
Bon, les histoires féeriques, je crois que Hollywood les fait déjà très bien. En Afrique, on a Hollywood aussi, au Nigeria, c'est très chouette. Pour nous, là, ça doit être utile, sinon ça ne sert à rien.
Ça doit être utile?
Oui, ça doit être utile à la vie des gens, à transformer, à changer le monde positivement, à l'améliorer. Si l'art peut aider les gens à ne pas se suicider, l'art peut sauver des vies. Alors, le rendre juste pour le spectacle, c'est du gâchis, moi, je trouve. Et déjà, nos ancêtres, du gâchis. Nos ancêtres, eux, je suis d'accord avec Hicham quand il dit que quand je nomme notre forêt sacrée une œuvre d'art, ce n'est pas avec la compréhension occidentale. Pour nous, l'art, ce n'est pas le fait qu'on ait mis les sculptures de nos ancêtres dans le musée. Ça n'a pas commencé là, ça avait commencé avant. Ça a pris notre signification et notre fonction quand c'est entré dans les musées, oui. Mais avant ça, ils étaient fabriqués pour un rôle précis, un but précis. Et nous, on veut renouer avec ces ancêtres-là. On va continuer dans leur vision. On ne va pas faire des choses juste pour le spectacle. On va faire des choses vraies. Par exemple, quand nos ancêtres faisaient les masques, on faisait un masque qu'on appelle Mbango, un masque pendé qui a 2 couleurs. D'un côté c'est blanc, d'un côté c'est noir. C'est des masques ces masques étaient utilisés lors de cérémonies pour guérir des maladies incurables, des épidémies qui étaient coincées, beaucoup de choses, et ça marchait. Et il y a plein d'exemples comme ça, des choses, par exemple le Galukoji. Galukoji, c'est une sculpture en forme un peu comme un ressort. Ça avait un rôle, c'était pour pour montrer la divinité, comment dire, je ne sais pas si j'utilise bien les noms, mais un peu truc comme un voyant, Nganga, pour voir ou pour annoncer des choses ou pour dénoncer un sorcier qui tue les gens dans les villages ou pour... voilà, c'était quelque chose qui servait dans la vie des gens. Et nous, la forêt sacrée, c'est quelque chose qui nous sert. Quand on dit que c'est une œuvre d'art, on va dans la forêt sacrée, on trouve des champignons, c'est la bouffe. Et on a besoin d'un produit, on n'a pas l'argent pour aller à la pharmacie, on va cueillir des feuilles, des racines des plantes, comme on est en train aussi de récupérer le savoir médicinal avec l'inspiration des ancêtres. Il suffit juste d'avoir un peu d'aloe vera ou bien des massinda ou bien une plante qui guérit et on est bien. Ça fait partie de notre vie. On ne va pas dire que c'est une forêt qui est là juste pour faire beau, avec des arbres verts. Et non, oui, il y a de la nourriture dedans. Et ça joue un rôle. Voilà. Je ne suis pas d'accord que l'art devrait être juste là, figé dans un musée. Non, l'art doit être dans la vie des gens. Il doit faire partie de la vie des gens. Si un artiste, son pays est attaqué, par exemple, comme chez nous ici, à Goma, c'est attaqué, on doit tous s'impliquer, on doit mettre notre art au service de notre pays et trouver ensemble des solutions, essayer de se souder les mains pour affronter ça ensemble.
Okay. Now, so in response to your question, should art tell the truth? I translated it maybe slightly off. I said at some point to explain it more, could it be like a fairy tale? Could it be something else than truth? Could it? And Cedar answers, well, in terms of telling stories, fairy tales, we already have Hollywood. They do it really well. We have Bollywood in Nigeria. They do it also really well. It's cool that they do it too. But I don't think that's what is at stake here. Art needs to be useful for life, for living, for transforming reality. If art can help you to not commit suicide, that's already something. And this is what we want to reestablish. This is how our ancestors used art to be well, to not suicide, to not commit suicide. And he says, I agree with Hicham when he opposed the idea that the forest, sacred forest, would be simply an artwork. He says, yes, Hicham is true. He's correct. It's not a artwork in the Western sense of the word, something one would put into a museum. That one can look at, or even our artworks that our ancestors made were not to be put in museums. They were part of life. They were part of the world. They were part of psychology. They played a specific role, and our aim is to reconnect with this ancestral knowledge, where art definitely is not a spectacle. It is real, therefore. He just mentions a certain type of mask from Pende history. I don't think I pronounced it right. Le masque Pende s'appelle comment? Pardon?
Mbangu.
It has two colors. It's black and white, and it's part of ceremonies through which people can overcome diseases, even epidemics. And it worked. It worked in a certain way. There's another type of sculpture. Again, I don't pronounce the name right. L'autre, c'était Konji. Pardon?
Galukonji.
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 It brings in divinity. It connects you with divinity. It makes from the person that has access to it a visionary who can see the future and who can detect what is blocking or where there are bad or negative forces to find them and change them. So that's how it is for us. That's also how we see the forest, coming back to Hicham. This forest that we're building, it's not an artwork a ready-made, if you will. No, it's something real. It's there. It functions. It has knowledge in it. It saves. It feeds. It brings life. There's medicine in it. So it's not being pretty or interesting. It is there for what it can bring how we can exchange with it. And that's how we see art. Art can indeed help people. This type of art, the way he describes it, can indeed help humanity survive and come to a better place.
Wow.
I think that's yeah.
It's maybe a bit unfair to hype.
Of course, I tricked you. I didn't
redirect the question. But there is one thing, though, that I was thinking about along, working in this project, is whether we would lose some of the great ambiguity maybe that the project has had, and the way the project has, or at least your work, has been able to exist, in this space of ambiguity, in this space of non-truth and truth at the same time, I suppose. I don't know.
As everything stands in relation to everything else, it will never disappear.
I know.
I think we're gonna end off this evening, but I think there will be drinks at the bar. You can chat with each other. You can ask questions. I knew already beforehand that it was way too much to discuss. I hope this preview gives me at least like a really eagerness to read more, to see more. I hope it did for you as well. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. Also, people from home, Cedar. Great that you could stay with us the whole evening. I would give a very big applause for Hicham, Renzo, and Cedar.
Zit hij ons of niet? Hij zit ons niet. Nee, dat is geen camera. Zit hij ons?
Ja.
Merci, Cédar.